Week 4 of the college football season has officially arrived, so let's make some previews and picks. We went pretty bad last week. 1-4 was my record in picks. And if you have not been to this channel before, if this is a new face to you, there's a wager on the line for the entire college football season because I was feeling a little confident, a little cocky, some may say, and I thought I could get over 50% of my picks right for the entire college football season. And I was told it was too easy to just do money lines. You got to spice it up and do some spreads. And if you're not a sports bettor, that's probably a good thing. A spread basically means if I say Missouri minus 6.5, they are favored by 6.5 points. And if they win the football game by 7, and I said that it was going to happen, then I would win that bet. If I say plus 6.5, I think the other team keeps it within that range. Missouri could still win the football game by 3, and I would still get that prediction right. And any other questions, file it with Google for all I care. And I think week 4 is an interesting week, to be honest. And so the way this format works is we'll make the picks, don't get it twisted, but we'll also kind of format it like what games you need to be watching throughout the TV schedule. Because I'll be honest, when I was in college, it was a little overwhelming to try to pick and choose my battles, as someone would say, with all the personal things that one may deal with, work, everything around it. I got to prioritize my time. And, if you can watch all of the football games in the world, that's awesome. Congratulations. But not everyone can do that. So I will give you an 11 o'clock slot, a 2:30, a 6:30, and a late night spot. Some of them will have insurance plays, which basically means if the first game I recommend is a blowout, go to the second one, or just go on the ESPN app and find whichever game is close. And actually, you'll be watching this potentially on a Thursday or early morning Friday. There's a Friday night game that you got to go watch. It's Illinois walking into Nebraska for a ranked matchup. Illinois has actually surprised me by a lot. They've started the year by 3-0, and Nebraska has done their job, basically beat down on Colorado. And until they play Ohio State, it was seen as probably a lock that they would go undefeated or maybe one loss. So do they take the loss to Illinois at home? They are favored by about 7.5 points. This is a very interesting matchup. We have not seen Dylan Raiola rattled in any kind of capacity. And I'm curious on how Brett Bielema is going to, game plan against that freshman quarterback. I think having this game at home for Nebraska really works in their favor. But with Nebraska favored by 7.5 points, it projects that they expect to win by 2 possessions. And I think the brand of football that Illinois is going to want to play, it's a Friday night. You have a short week, less amount of prep time. I'm going to actually take the points with Illinois. But if you were to ask me who I think wins this game, I think I trust the foundation that Nebraska has. I really like how Raiola has prepared. I like how they have a running attack that they really like to rely on. Everyone points to the 5-star quarterback, but in reality, the heart and soul of this offense is truly the front 7 and how they're able to move the ball down the field by running it. So with that kind of brand and that style, especially knowing Illinois' brand, I think it's going to be a closer game. I don't expect a lot of points. And when you have the lower total, it's less likely that it ends up being like a 10-point win in Nebraska's favor. So I'm not going to overthink the room here, and I'm going to just take the points. It's a late night Friday game, so if you got time Friday night, watch this game because I think it's going to be a good one. And I'm going to be completely honest, when we go to Saturday for the 11 a.m. slot, this is one of the more gross 11 a.m. slots. I have it pulled up to the right of me. You got to be a college football sicko to watch some of these games. So I'm still going to give my recommendations as Big Noon Kickoff goes to Columbus for Marshall coming into town. Mind you, Marshall is down about 40 points, so Ohio State's projected to win by more than 40 points, and that's the Big Noon Kickoff game of the week. To give you an idea of how bad this slate is for the early games, I'm still going to watch a ton of them because I think a couple recommendations, and I'm not going to point towards just one, is Florida going to Mississippi State. You saw how bad they played against Texas A&M. Mississippi State just lost to Toledo in a blowout. These are two programs in desperate times equals desperate measures. And I'm just curious on how these teams bounce back. Obviously, Mississippi State has a new head coach who's going to get a little bit more grace. You shouldn't have any kind of grace when it comes to losing to Toledo in a blowout, especially as an SEC team. But definitely compared to Billy Napier, who has basically both feet outside the door, but the The news has not broke about that, but I'm curious on how this team's going to bounce back. It's in Starkville. Do I want to make a pick for this? It's Florida -6. Do I feel comfortable going there? No, not with these teams, but that's an option if you want to watch that. NC State goes to Clemson on the 11 a.m. slot. NC State's been very disappointing, and it's in Tiger Stadium. I'm curious if Clemson's going to just dog walk them. They have a lot of momentum from their last game, or is Clemson going to come back down to earth? That's still an interesting game. I would definitely, if I had to rank them, I would probably put that one number one. I would look at James Madison going to North Carolina. These are two undefeated programs. James Madison was seen as a team that lost their head coach. It would probably take a step back. North Carolina lost their quarterback for the entire season in game one in a hard-fought win over Minnesota. They are 3-0 after no one was talking about it. I think that's a very interesting game. Though it is a group of five going to a Power 4 program, it's still one to really watch because James Madison is not a team you just want to play with your food if you're North Carolina, and especially knowing they do have an inexperienced quarterback, and it gets a little dicey, but they're playing at home. I would give them the benefit of the doubt. But like I said, you could even go to Kansas and West Virginia for the 11 a.m. slot, and those are two 1-2 programs. West Virginia potentially on the verge of, pushing out their head coach. After last year, West Virginia was seen as a team that would bounce back and continue the momentum from last year after they played really well. I got so much pushback from Big 12 fans saying that they were a middle of the pack Big 12 team, if not on the lower half. I want y'all to watch this video. I wrote back. You just ain't read it. But you have Garrett Green, the Baker clone. Baker was his favorite quarterback. They always mention on the broadcast if you have not watched the West Virginia game. And then Kansas, Jalen Daniels has just not looked like himself. This will probably be some bad quarterback play. You have West Virginia -2. Kansas been in a lot of tough games. And then West Virginia blows a bad lead. I apologize, I'm taking a minute. I'm going to rock West Virginia. Does Kansas start 1-3 or does West Virginia? I get it. Now I get why West Virginia is only favored by 2. You know what? I'm going to take Kansas and the veteran quarterback to have their best game of the season going into Morgantown. I'm going to get Kansas +2 because that at least gives me Kansas either winning outright or West Virginia winning on a game-winning field goal by 1. Let's go to the 3:00 game. As I scroll down through the entire FBS, I'm not just going to go through just the top 25. But speaking of the top 25, we have at the 2:30 slot, USC in Michigan. A fascinating matchup to me. You have number 11 USC going to the Big House to face the defending national champions. We all know they're not the same team. You have Alex Orji starting, though. Alex Orji is the new quarterback in town for Michigan after the catastrophe that Davis Warren was. He's just a bad quarterback. Love the story. Don't like the player. And USC has looked like a more physical team. They look like a team that their identity has been found. They look cohesive. They look like a well-oiled machine. And this is a huge test. Everyone talks about these Pac-12 teams coming into the Big Ten. Can they handle the physicality? Can they handle the cold weather? We're not at cold weather yet, but the physicality has not changed. Michigan's brand is really going to test USC. And I think this might be closer than what Texas coming into the Big House, because obviously Texas is a couple steps ahead of USC as just a program in general. But I still think USC -5 is my go-to for this week. I really like that. I think if USC is going to win this game, it will be most likely by a touchdown or a little bit more, just because I don't think Alex Orji is going to be able to match up with this offense. I get it. It's the Big House, but I think Michigan fans, the oxygen really left the room. But the backup plan, the backup game is Georgia Tech going to Louisville or Arkansas going to Auburn. And I think Auburn is a fascinating story right now. And I understand I don't want to gloss over Georgia Tech and Louisville. You have an undefeated ACC team. We saw what Georgia Tech looked like. Haynes King is electric. If you want to see any of my previews, just go to the week 0 ones. I don't mean to gloss it over. It's a good game, but I'm fascinated by this Arkansas and Auburn game. I made a TikTok about it, by the way. Go follow the TikTok. It's down in the bio. This game is so interesting to me because both of these teams, their schedules get so difficult once you move past this game. Once you move past this game, I think both of them have 3 straight ranked opponents as of today, which is wild to think about. I think for the rest of the season, Arkansas has 6 and Auburn has 5. I get it. They're in very different positions as programs. You have Arkansas basically 1 foot out the door for Sam Pittman because you continuously have the same issues that you've had in previous years with Sam Pittman of like just fumbling games. And I've already seen it in the stars that you guys are going to go with Bobby Petrino for the end of the season, I would say. I don't know. I feel like he's in the room and we've seen what happened with Jimbo Fisher. As soon as Bobby Petrino joins, Jimbo's gone. Sam Pittman's probably up next. And then on the flip side, it's a bad loss for Auburn. They finally made a quarterback change. Payton Thorne is not the starting quarterback to my understanding. And if you lose to Arkansas at home, I get we're giving Hugh Freeze the grace and we're giving him the benefit of the doubt, the grace period of a new head coach. But at some point, we also have to be objective about it. We have to say these are just bad losses, and it's not something to define his tenure at Auburn, but it's also a red flag. It just is. I get it, the quarterback thing, but that was also self-inflicted. That was something where he made that decision to say, I'm going to keep Payton Thorne on this roster. I'm not going to bring someone in. They have the NIL funds. They have the recruiting. He made that decision. Therefore, I'm going to put the blame on him for a while until he actually brings in a real quarterback, unless the guy that they just brought in is the guy. And they should dominate Arkansas. Auburn -2.5 is going to be on the board. We're at 4 picks today. That is for the 2:30 slot. Also, I want to shout out Rutgers and Virginia Tech. That could be a sneaky, really close game. Just want to point that out for you guys. And then the game of the week. Oh, I did not see this. I apologize. Freeze frame. You're probably wondering how we got here. 3 o'clock, Utah and Oklahoma State. If you're not interested in any of the USC and Michigans of the world, if you're not interested in anything else, watch this game. I think it kind of got off my radar because Utah's quarterback Cam Rising's out, and I just didn't really think about it. But this is a big game for the Big 12. You know, Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon has not had that game of like, I'm a 99 overall for a reason. Like I'm that guy in college football 25 for a reason. I got the hype coming out of last year for a reason. And to be fair, he started slow last year. When is that game going to happen? Is it going to happen against a very physical, a very, strong Utah team, a very fundamental team? And that's just with a really well-coached team. They don't have Cam Rising. They had that situation last year. Maybe they've made some changes to better allocate the rest of the team. But to be fair, when he's not on there, they're not as good of a team. They're probably not the 12th best team in the nation. That's why Oklahoma State is favored at home. Go watch that game. I'm not putting any kind of a bet where Cam Rising is not playing because you really don't know what Utah is going to be on the offensive side of the ball, but they are going to play some sound defense. It does sound like they're dealing with a lot of injuries, while Oklahoma State's offensive line has just not been up to snub or as tenured and good as people had hyped it up in the offseason. So I apologize for missing that. Also want to shout out TCU at SMU. These are a lot of sneaky games this week that we could get a chaotic week 4, but the big game of the week is number 6 Tennessee going into Memorial Stadium in Norman, Oklahoma to face Oklahoma. Josh Heupel's return is going to be electric. And I have not made the video yet talking about Tennessee. I've made it on TikTok. I think Tennessee's a national title contender. And this is the game that I see the path that Oklahoma could win this game for sure. I think Deion Burks could expose the secondary. I think Oklahoma's defense is very good. I just don't know if Jackson Arnold, this is the game he stamps that he is the next great Oklahoma quarterback. I just don't know if this is the trajectory. This is the time he's going to have to take a major step. There is a reason why Tennessee's favored -7. And I like Tennessee and Nico and the trajectory. And I think this is a team that at its core is a running attack. And I think they are going to be able to control the game. They're going to want to play at the pace that they want to play at. I don't care if it's in Norman. I get it. Oklahoma has a great record when game day shows up. They have a great record at home. I'm still going to take Tennessee. It's not going to be on the bets because I'm scaling back. I'm under 500 right now. I'm in the danger zone. I want to get some quick wins and build up that lead as we look down for the rest of the night. You could go to 7 o'clock. Mind you, I want to shout out, the Tennessee game is at 6:30. Baylor at Colorado is an interesting one, especially knowing the hot seat for Baylor. They finally unlocked the NIL funds. They finally feel like they got some ammunition, and Colorado bounces back against Colorado State. So I'm very curious how a Dave Aranda-led team is going to walk into Boulder and see how they're going to play. I think Shador's going to put up some great numbers. Colorado's favored by 2. This is really a pick'em game. I'm curious on how they're going to play because we could easily get right back into the Colorado hype train if they get a Big 12 win here, especially knowing Baylor is in desperation mode. Dave Aranda almost left the program last year, left as in fired. He's playing for his job still. And if he's able to build up that momentum and beat a Colorado team, is going to do wonders for Baylor. And then Colorado's hype train could be all the way back if they pick up a couple quick wins. They're looking at like a 4-1, a 3-1 start. And then they find themselves right back into that bowl contention, especially knowing the Big 12. I'm not going to say that they're a Big 12 title contender because I know what not Oklahoma. I know what Colorado is. You know what Colorado is, but they could definitely build up that hype train again. So we're sticking with the 4 bets of Illinois plus 7.5, Kansas plus 2, USC minus 5, and Auburn minus 2.5. And that's it, guys. It's a relatively light week with I think the middle area. Take your time and pick and choose what games you want to watch. I think there's a lot of great ones. And the night games definitely prioritize. But if you want to miss out on the 11 a.m. slot, go for it. Sleep in. If you want to watch game day and watch some, sicko football, also late night. I'm all over the place, guys. Sorry. Late night game, Kansas at BYU, 2 undefeated. Just want to shout out that one. BYU, a sneaky team that could definitely shake Kansas State. Number 13 team in the nation, potential upset. It's been a crazy year up to this point. But if it is your first time at Rush the Field, we hit 800 subs today, guys. That's incredible. It just is. So thank you guys so much for giving me the opportunity to talk football with you because that's all I'll ever ask. Give me an opportunity to talk football and I will keep producing content. So thank you so much and I will see you guys again next time.